How's it brewing, everyone? Coffee Bean here. Now, before we get started, I wanted to let you guys know that I actually ran out of space on my computer, so I missed the Larxine and Xigbar fight. So the recordings that I have for these are after I've already beaten all the other bosses, but it doesn't really change a whole lot. Most you may see me goof off a bit more because there's less stress and pressure because I know I've already beaten them once before, so I can do it again. Starting with Larxene this time around, it was kind of interesting because I've obviously, like I said before, I've beaten her already. So coming back and refighting her, I was kind of just swinging and going, eventually I'll win. Because Larxene is very combo heavy. However, she doesn't necessarily have a lot of kill potential. While, yes, she can, and she has beaten me before, there's not a lot of combos of hers that will connect and break the combo, and then have another attack follow that up. And that's the biggest issue with fighting bosses, is when their attacks are no longer considered a combo, because that's the only thing that can kill you. In Larxine's case, she just does a lot of combos, so there wasn't really any moment. Okay, there were a few, but they were far and few. And she also has plenty of points in the fight where you can jump in either sometimes what seemed like in the middle of her combo, which a lot of bosses in this game actually have that sort of, not issue, but mechanic. They want it to challenge the player to kind of challenge a boss in the middle of an attack or right at the, or as a follow-up. So there were plenty of cases where you had to jump at a boss at a time that seemed like, no, they're on the offensive, like, I need to dodge. Where the actual case is, no, you didn't need to dodge, you need to get in there and lay down on the offense. Larxene, I think, was the perfect case for just going offensive whenever and at all times. Yes, you can't block some of her projectiles, but in most cases, they're very telegraphed, and I didn't really have a huge issue getting hit because a lot of the equipment I have as well also gave me lightning protection or thunder protection. So I didn't suffer too much from her projectiles, which are thunder damage. Now, I can't say for certain that her base attack is also considered thunder, but considering the amount of damage I took, I would say that yes, it is considered thunder damage, basic attacks, projectiles, because I really should have been taking hits and being dropped to 1 HP and 1 hit, but there were plenty of cases in the fight where I take multiple hits before I drop down to 1. Now, yes, she does have some trickier moves to dodge and certain attacks that do have a lot of follow-up after it. But again, like I was saying before, it's most times considered the same combo. So you don't necessarily have to worry about being killed by it. The biggest thing that you have to look out for are her projectiles. Because while, yes, you can be hit by a combo and have time to heal after it, if you get caught in certain projectiles, she can combo off of those and then you're back to being at 1 HP, and that's when you get in danger. And you'll see that I actually had to use rage form in this fight, which typically I try to avoid it. I feel like it can be kind of a cop out at times, but again, I've already beaten her before, and this is the run back, the replay. I also can't remember if I used it in any of my other fights where I actually won the run. I kind of feel like a broken record in the sense that I keep saying that her combos cannot kill. Now, I could be dead wrong about this, but at least in my run, it wasn't that big a deal. The unblockable lightning strikes, didn't have too much trouble with those, except for just being slow on the reaction. Larxine's ultimate is actually super interesting because when she activates it, she makes clones of herself. But at least as far as I've been able to tell, the clones also take damage that is connected to her health. So if you attack all the clones together, you can do massive damage in her special. Now it is pretty hard to pull it off, but the ultimate weapon shot lock works extremely well. I had done it in testing and it worked, but it is really difficult for me. When Larxine is lightning dashing, don't bother trying to attack. Just wait, block, just be on the defensive, wait for an opening. It always shows up. Also, that was just dumb. But with that, Larxine is defeated. And we can now move on to one of the spaciest fights, Xigbar. He's honestly not a bad boss. Actually, one of my favorites. Like Larxine, I think Xigbar is a boss where you would kind of go, okay, I haven't played the game in a really long time. Let me fight like Larxine and Xigbar and get like back into the swing of things. Larxine kind of shows you evasion and also being offensive, while Xigbar is very heavy on defense and kind of keeping your cool even when it seems like there's an opening, because there isn't. Xigbar will play kind of like a feint where he'll just kind of stand around, you go to attack him, and boom, he's gone. And I think that that's really cool because it makes the player kind of fear just going and jumping at the opponent. Yes, they want you to like be on the offensive and be able to fight the enemy, but they don't want it to just be like a mash the attack button and you win. There's got to be some strategy, some tactics that are necessary to beat each boss. Just like in Final Fantasy games, you'll have certain bosses that require the use of a certain spells like fire, ice. The same thing in Kingdom Hearts games. In this fight in particular, I found thunder to be like the most useful of magic spells. It didn't have any bonus effects, but the fact that thunder doesn't need to travel, but it's an instantaneous move, it often led to the potential of comboing. Even if I couldn't make it on one thunder, you can move as you cast magic, so I could do thunder to thunder into more attacks. But regardless of what I did, thunder was always there to kind of keep that opening there and ready for me until I could approach. That's kind of the beauty and the curse of magic in this game, is that a lot of them move with like the same sort of trajectory. The only ones that are kind of different are thunder and air. Those both will appear instantly at the enemy's location, but everything else travels essentially in the same manner. Blizzard does kind of have a special effect with giving you like the ice rail so that you can slide along the ground. But beyond that, there isn't really anything else that makes magic a whole lot different on its own. But beyond using like thunder, I guess I could have also used air to continue combos and such, but with air, when it hits or when you use it, it kind of lingers for a while, and if you run into it, you pop up into the air and you go into flow motion. And I knew that that was going to get me killed at some point. It might have helped actually with dealing a little extra damage, but it was a risk I didn't want to take, so I just skipped it. And in terms of using other keyblades, I thought about using, I believe it's called Shooting Star. And that's one where, I can dual wield the guns. But, you can't block with the guns. You can dodge. But against Xigbar, I knew I needed to block attacks. So I was like, alright, I can't do this to myself. Although it would have been really cool, and now like looking back, like in hindsight, I kind of wish that I did, just so we could have like a duel, just like shooting back and forth. That would have been really cool. But I could have also used the Keyblade from the Tangled world. I think it's Ever After, because that one and its form change, you can shoot from like anywhere, and you can still block and dodge and everything. So I was like, oh, I could just use the staff, dodge around for a while until there's an opening, and then like all of the Mirage clones will just light them up. But again, I wasn't exactly thinking about like playing for the sake of being flashy. I was like, all right, I want to fight and just, be done with it for now because I've already beat him, like I just needed to prove that I could. And originally when I fought both Larxine and Xigbar, I fought them both without Kupo coins because I felt like I needed to prove, because they weren't super hard. I was like, I need to show that they aren't that hard, and I don't need the coin for it, which I think is hilarious because those are the fights that I didn't actually record. And so I'm just like, oh, I did something that's like, it's not super cool, but like, it's better than some of my other fights. And I was just like, oh man, like I finally did something. I fought a boss without needing the coin, and then I lost the fight, like the recording of the fight. And so I was like, oh, okay. Well, do I do it without the coin and like the replays? And yeah, I couldn't do it. I mean, I could, but I didn't want to. But all right, let's go ahead and jump into the breakdown of Xigbar. Now, for me, and for most other people, I would assume you're going to be doing a lot of blocking in this fight. There is an ability that allows you to recover MP every time you block, and I would definitely recommend equipping that before this fight. Now, it doesn't help with recharging MP, but as long as you have magic, it'll recharge the blue meter. Xigbar's ultimate wasn't too bad to avoid. I found that dodging in almost like a square-ish pattern seemed to work really well. But like for the most part, as long as you keep around like the edges as you dodge, you're usually okay. I still think this is kind of funny, but I wanted to end the fight with Showdown, which is like a special situation command. But I ended up reflecting one of his shots and beat him with it. And I was like, wait, you can do that? Because there are certain bosses that are locked from like other element in the fight being able to end the fight. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I have to, like, I have to at least hit him myself. But I didn't know that reflecting a blast would still count. And it kind of shocked me because I was on the verge of death. I was like, all right, I'll block these and then I'll heal. And then he died, and I was like, oh, cool. And that marks Xigbar off the list. After fighting Xigbar, I was like, man, that guy was super campy. It can't get worse than that. And it got worse than that. Ansem is one of the most campiest bosses I have ever fought. This man would not stand still, but he would relentlessly keep on sending out projectiles. I had no clue what to do. Every time I fought him, I'd get an opening and I'm like, okay, I'm in the middle of my combo. And then a laser that he started before my combo would eventually hit me, or there would be a bomb floating around somewhere that would finally lock onto me and explode. And I'm just like, whoa, okay, wait a minute. How was I supposed to see that? And this happened over and over. In my final run, I didn't really run into it as much. I started to learn a bit more of what magic I should use and what movements I could do to kind of avoid that. But I had never run into this issue in any of the previous times fighting him, so it was really surprising. But you'll see oftentimes in these fights that one thing that I really do abuse is the invincibility or invulnerability through Cure. When you use Cure, you can continue to be in motion just like when you use other magic, how you keep moving in a certain direction. But with Cure, there is an ability that allows you to cure through any attack. So you can essentially use it like a free dodge. So in any case where I felt like, okay, there's an attack coming and I'm still not entirely sure I can make it out of this before or after healing, so I'll just do it during the move. And it doesn't always work the greatest, because sometimes, like the multiple fireball shots there, if you heal in the middle, sometimes you end up getting stuck in the middle of it. So you heal through one move just to be hit by the next. So while it is a pretty good option, you have to be careful about using it on what I would try to do is more like single type big moves instead of big combos. And again, whatever your go-to magic is will save your life. For me, mine has always been Thunder, just because it locks onto a position and it's really good at carrying your combos and keeping you going. But I will opt to switch to Fire and Ice occasionally, because sometimes that little bit of stall between launching the magic and it actually hitting has saved me when I get the timing off on when I should have used magic. But all in all, I will say that while Ansem is very campy and he can be kind of frustrating to fight, just like all the other bosses, like, they are still fun to fight. Yes, they're frustrating, but it's that frustration that when you finally beat a boss makes it feel worth it. And I think Ansem is actually perfect for that, because you get so wrapped up in, oh, I have to dodge this, I have to dodge that, oh, these moves are so insane, that when you finally start to find those workarounds, it really makes you feel like, oh, like, I've kind of earned this. I've broken the code, so to speak. Now, Ansem does have two ultimates. The first one does have an end. The second one, I didn't find an end to. So I don't know if you were supposed to go ahead and attack him while the ultimate was going on, but that's what I did. If it wasn't the case, then I don't know when it was supposed to stop. But luckily, I broke through his defense and beat him. While Ansem does use a lot of projectiles and stage hazard sort items, he does have a lot of openings. I didn't run into a lot of them because I'm impatient, But the more I fought him, the more I realized that those openings existed, but I would try to go for an attack when I really shouldn't have, and then I'd miss my chance when the opening actually appeared. Ansem's ultimate is actually the perfect example of this patience coming into practice, because it's pretty telegraphed. You know what's coming, he doesn't necessarily change it up all that much, and you can block almost all of his attacks except for the sort of shadow claws that pop up from the ground. I believe everything except for that can be blocked, and then when the orbs actually dash at you. So with those two attacks being the only unblockables, I feel like the claws coming up from the ground, that one was pretty easy to dodge. Yes, sometimes it would catch me off guard in the ultimate because the ground is also covered in darkness. And then the orbs dashing at you, I like to jump the gun a lot because I'm impatient, and most times I did get punished for dashing too early, or even in a couple attempts I dashed straight into the orb thinking that I could dash through it. You can't dash through it, at least based on my attempts. But the ultimate for Ansem, I wasn't expecting a second ultimate to be so similar but yet still unique. Ansem's second ultimate actually plays off of the fact that you will remember the first ultimate, so that when you start to try to anticipate the second, you start to make mistakes because it's a different pattern. Kingdom Hearts is very much a pattern game. Yes, you can equip items like burn protection to stop from being burned, but then they switch to freeze. So while you can get around certain things like that, they know that the player is learning the pattern, and if they think that a player is going to use an item to skip learning that pattern, then they'll punish you for, trying to skip learning how to fight a boss, which I think is really crazy, but also like one of the best things about the game. I will say, Ansem's second ultimate did not disappoint. While it had those mix-ups that really would throw you off, it also introduced attacks that you did not see earlier in the fight. So yes, you had seen kind of the start of this ultimate before, and then he completely changes it. And so it starts to play with your mind where you're like, oh, this is something new. I've never seen it before. What do I do? And you kind of panic. You might go with options that aren't the best. Certain attacks, your first instinct isn't always to block. And with some of these bosses, seeing how a lot of their projectiles are unblockable, you don't always jump to the first instinct being, oh, I have to block that. It's no, I have to dodge this. But a lot of Ansem stuff, it was blockable. I think because he had so many projectiles, it would have been not impossible, but very difficult to dodge through everything. I'm sure someone's done it without blocking, but being able to dodge through every move coming at them. But for me personally, I could not find that pattern, and I paid for it a couple times. And yeah, I think I've talked long enough. All in all, Ansem was a really fun boss. He definitely threw me for a new learning curve in terms of other bosses that I had fought previously. I think the fact that Larxine and Xigbar were so easy kind of got me a little too lax in this fight, and that's probably what made me so impatient this time through. But yeah, even through the frustration, I enjoyed it. Even after all those deaths, because in the end, I still beat Ansem. I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share the video with anyone else who you think may enjoy the content. Alright, enough talk. I will catch you guys in the next video.